Good evening and welcome to the Bhagavatam. Today we continue with the Uddhava Gita. We continue with the Uddhava Gita, and we're going to be talking about a very wonderful topic, which is it's called Beyond Renunciation and Knowledge. So Krishna is talking to his dear friend Uddhava, and as they continue speaking, Krishna is giving his most wonderful instructions to his dear friend, just as he did with Arjun back in the battle of the Mahabharata. So it begins with Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said. So interesting. When you hear those words, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, that if you translate that in simple English, it would be God said, right? So if God is instructing us, how would we listen? If that Supreme Being who manifested himself here on earth appeared before all of us and then was instructing, how would we listen? So listen carefully. And as you listen, contemplate the words he's saying. No one's asking you believe, no one's asking you to agree, but listen carefully and see the context, the content, and the depth of what he's saying. So he's telling Uddhava, my dear Uddhava, by satsang, that is association with my pure devotees. Satsang is associating with his pure devotees, devotees who have no motivation, who have no agenda, people who love God and are not there trying to throw in some political agenda or throw in some, personal agenda, they're trying to get something out of them. No, satsang is never like that. Satsang is when you listen to pure devotees who love God deeply, who've devoted themselves completely, and who come to you to share the beauty of what they have learned. So he says, by association with my pure devotees, one can destroy one's attachment for all objects of material sense gratification. You may ask, why does one need to do that? Why does one need to destroy one's attachment for the objects of sense gratification? Two reasons. The first is that's our entire pursuit in life. That's our entire life energy that is spent in gaining the objects of sense gratification. So whether that be nice food to eat, nice clothes to wear, lovely house to live in, nice car, places to vacation in, all the fun things we like to do, those are all objects of sense gratification. Your partner, your children, everything. This is all for your enjoyment. That's another way to put it. So when you are living your life for your enjoyment, that is sense gratification. Now, what does that lead to? Whatever it is that you're enjoying, you become attached to it. If something's giving you pain, if something's giving you heartache, if someone's giving you a rough time, then you don't want to be there anymore. You want to get away from that person, that job, that place, whatever it is. You want to get away from there, and you want to go to a place that is more pleasing and enjoyable and that gratifies your senses. So what happens when you get the things that you want, you become attached to them. It's very easy to become detached from something you don't want. But when you get what you want, you become attached to it. And when you become attached to it, here's what happens. Any problem that occurs with that thing that you're attached to causes you great grief. If someone does something to your car, your house, your possession, your partner, your child, then you're very hurt, you're very upset, you're very angry. If somebody does it to somebody else's, and if that somebody else is not even someone you know, and if they're living in another city, well, there's much further detachment from that. You're not going to be attached to that thing. It's not going to cause you anxiety and grief unless you're worried it's going to happen to you. Now, that might cause some anxiety. But otherwise, all our anxieties, all our fears, all our stress, all our sense of belonging, and everything comes from this attachment to the objects of sense gratification. So he says that by listening to my pure devotees who are devoted to God and who have no other agenda than to please God and to serve all other human beings and all other creatures, when you listen to them, that listening destroys the attachment for the objects of sense gratification. It lifts you to a different vibration, it lifts you to a different realm, and you begin to realize the reality of what this world is. You begin to see it more objectively. You begin to understand that neither is this body me, nor do the things I have actually mine. They all belong to God. And as such, they are for His enjoyment, for His sense gratification. And once we connect the dots on that, and we use everything for the enjoyment of God and His loved ones, then it becomes a beautiful world. Then it's like we're living in the spiritual world right here, right now. There is no suffering because there is no attachment. And when there is no attachment, there is no suffering. So Krishna continues, such purifying association brings me under the control of my devotee. Wow. God is controlled by the love of his devotee, someone who is devoted to him. That devotion is not about saying so. It is not about just going to church, temple, mosque, whatever people go to once a week or even less. It's not about believing something, and it's not just about reading some book. It is about devoting oneself 100% to God. So does that mean you can't have have children and a family and a house and a car and a job? Absolutely. You can have all of it. But your devotion is to God. Your priority, your sole purpose of living is to be devoted to God. And when that is the case, he says, such purifying association brings me under the control of my devotee, the person who wants nothing from God and gives all of themselves to God and devotes themselves in loving service to God, captures God. God comes under the control of such a person. Now, what kind of control would that be? If one wants nothing, then what kind of control would it be? If you have no agenda, what would that be? What kind of control is he referring to here? And it's a very simple thing. That control is the control of love. Love controls God. Nothing else. Not knowledge, not renunciation, not your big position if you're the head priest or you're some guru. That doesn't matter. So he goes on to explain. He says one may perform the Ashtanga yoga system. It's this massive amount of meditation and practice involved in Ashtanga yoga, especially if you do it properly. It's not like this yoga studios that we have out here today. That's just such a washed out, watered down version of yoga. It is almost an insult to call it yoga. The Ashtanga yoga system requires deep practices of renunciation. It requires massive amounts of dedication day in and day out. It requires a lot of austerity. It requires a lot of simple living. It requires the study of the Shastra. Today, they don't even give credit to the original yoga teachers of Ashtanga Yoga, but rather just talk in terms of their modern day concoctions that they've come up with. So even if one performs the Ashtanga Yoga system in its pure form and does it fully and completely, or if one engages in philosophical analysis of the elements of nature, as is done with Jnana Yoga, or practices nonviolence and other ordinary principles of piety, being good, being pious, chanting the Vedas, performing penances, taking to the renounced order of life, sannyas, becoming a celibate, renunciate, executing sacrificial performances, digging wells, planting trees, performing other public welfare activities, giving in charity, carrying out severe vows, worshipping the devas, the demigods, chanting confidential mantras, visiting holy places, or accepting major and minor disciplinary injunctions. These are the yam and niyam of yoga practice, the Ashtanga yoga practice. But even by performing such activities, one does not bring me under his control. God cannot be controlled by any amount of your spiritual practices, your good deeds, your study, your learning, your knowledge, your none of that. Pious, your penances and austerities, none of that can win over the heart of God. The only thing that can do that is anya abhilashita shunyam. When you take your desires and reduce them to nothing, that the only desire you have is to love God. The only thing you want is to love Him. When that happens, when there is that pure devotion and you act upon it, you don't just think it, you don't just say it, but you act upon it, devotional service, then you conquer God with your love. Because you're not trying to get anything out of Him. You're not trying to impress Him. You're not trying to prove yourself to Him. You're not trying to be worthy of Him. You're simply devoted to Him and with love. Then Krishna says, in every yuga, in all through the ages, many living entities entangled in the modes of passion and ignorance gained the association of my devotees. Thus such living entities were able to achieve my supreme abode. So he says, through the ages, many persons who were caught up in this world, caught in the modes of passion and ignorance. We've explained that in the past, so I won't go into it now. But those who are caught up in this world, who were materialistically caught up in the spell of this world, but when they met the pure devotees of Krishna, of God, they were able to become free from their attachments and achieved the supreme abode. That supreme abode, Krishna says, once going there, one never returns to this temporary and miserable world. He refers to that place as his abode, the spiritual world, where he resides, along with all his loved ones. All the pure devotees go there. Those who have no agenda then to please him and love him. That's the symptom. So then he gives a bunch of examples of different people who've attained this supreme abode. And many of them were, well, I'll tell you about them. Someone like Vritrasura was an asura. It's in his name, Vritrasura. Vritrasura was an asura. But he was a great devotee at heart. And when he met the right people, that devotion came out of him. Young Prahlad won over Vishnu, who appeared to him as Narsingha. Movies on in the theaters, do go see it. The Prahlad Maharaj, this young boy who his father tormented and tortured, he gained the supreme abode. Bali Maharaj, the King Bali, who offered everything, his kingdom, and finally himself, his head, to the dwarf Brahmin Vamandev. Then you have Banasura, with his many, many arms, who came to fight with Krishna. And finally, Krishna killed him himself. Then you have Maya, then Vibhishan, Sugriva, and Hanuman, right? And Jambavan. They all appeared at the time of Ram, and all of them went to the spiritual world. Or some say they might be here still, but only to bless those who are still here and to help them make it back. There was Jatayu and Gajendra, the elephant who called out to Vishnu. And there was Tuladhara and Dharmavyadha and Kubja. This was Jatayu. And then Kubja, the hunchbacked woman who Krishna blessed. And then there were the gopis of Vrindavan, who were young cowherd girls taking care of the cows in Vrindavan, completely uneducated. And there were the wives of the Brahmins. All of them simple village people. What was their great quality that entitled them to go back to the spiritual world, to be with God eternally? It was not that they were great scholars. It was not that they performed great austerities. It is not that they did very difficult things. They didn't stand on one leg for many, many years. They didn't sit in the cold snow in the Himalaya mountains. They didn't fast for days on end. No, none of that. They just loved with their heart. That was their qualification. They loved with all their heart, with all of their being. They loved Krishna. That was it. Or it was Ram in the time of Hanuman and so on. So he says, the persons I have mentioned did not undergo serious studies of the Vedas, nor did they worship great saintly persons, nor did they execute severe vows or austerities. Simply by association with me and my devotees, they achieved me. See how powerful it is. The inhabitants of Vrindavan, including the gopis, the cows, the unmoving creatures such as the twin Arjun trees, the animals, the living entities with stunted consciousness such as the bushes and thickets, snakes such as Kaliya, all achieved perfection of life, even Kaliya, right? By unalloyed love for me, and thus they very easily achieved me. Even though one engages with great endeavor in the mystic yoga system, even though one engages in philosophical speculation, charity, vows, penances, ritualistic sacrifices, teaching of Vedic mantras to others, personal study of the Vedas or the renounced order of life as a sannyasi, as a celibate, still one cannot achieve me. Krishna is being very clear about this. You see, the Vedas present to you a way of living in this world, to conduct your purushartha, your material duties, your dharma, your duties of this world, artha, how to make money, kama, how to enjoy, and finally, moksha, if you're ready for it. But all of that is aparavidya. Paravidya, that is the knowledge that liberates you from this world, the knowledge that frees you from the cycle of birth and death, that is paravidya. That is the great knowledge. That is the knowledge that is beyond this world, that takes you beyond this world and in and of itself is beyond this world. Whereas the Vedas, what they teach, and all these spiritual texts, what they teach, and I would even broaden it out now. Let's just take it for a minute. All the stuff that people read about their health and wellness, and all the things you might be studying about the mind and psychology and the ego, and all of that is not going to free you from the cycle of birth and death. You might be a follower of any religion. That is not going to free you from the cycle of birth and death. Even if you say that your Messiah, your messenger, whoever said that you will be. But the fact is that unless you have developed love of God, there's no question of becoming free from the cycle of birth and death. It's wishful thinking. Okay? It's something that human beings will tell you so that you follow their religion or their path. But God is not interested in your religion. God is not interested in your different practices that you do. There is only one currency with which you can purchase God, and that currency is love. And that currency of love is not just something that is part-time. It's not something that is just once in a while, occasional. No, it's where you can think of nothing but Him. The word used there is tanmay. Tanmay means that you are just completely absorbed. There is no other thought. There is no other desire. There is no other love but Him. And everything else you take care of in this world and see it in relation to Him. The children are His people, His children. Your partner is His. Everything you have is His. And so in that way, you channel everything towards God. So you live in the world, you have everything of the world, and at the same time, you are completely devoted to God. That is the mood in which one achieves God. You achieve Him not by your doing, not by your act, not by all your practices and knowledge and everything else, but by your pure love. The residents of Vrindavan, headed by the gopis, were always attached to me with deepest love. So Krishna is describing the love of the gopis. The gopis, again, as I told you earlier, were the cowherd girls of Vrindavan. They were always completely attached to me with the deepest love. Therefore, when my uncle Akrura brought my brother Balaram and me to the city of Mathura, this is when Akrura, Krishna's uncle, came to take him and Balaram away to another city, Mathura, then all the gopis, the residents of Vrindavan, suffered extreme mental distress because of separation from me, and they could not find any source of happiness. Dear Uddhava, all of all of those nights that the gopis spent with me, their most dearly beloved in the land of Vrindavan, seemed to them to pass in a moment. They had such incredible, wonderful pastimes. So all those nights that the gopis spent with me, their most dearly beloved in the land of Vrindavan, seemed to them to pass in less than a moment. Bereft of my association, however, the gopis felt that those same nights dragged on forever, as if each night were equal to a day of Brahma. That means equal to millions, as if that night was millions of years. So they would remember him, they would remember all the wonderful times they had, and they couldn't stop thinking of him. Even when he was gone for decades, they couldn't stop thinking about him, ever. My dear Uddhava, just as great sages in yogic trance merge into self-realization, you know of that, right? Great sages, they sit in yogic trance and merge into self-realization, like rivers merging into the ocean, and are thus not aware of material names and forms. Similarly, the gopis of Vrindavan were so completely attached to me within their minds that they could not think even of their own bodies or of this world or of their future lives. Their entire consciousness was simply bound up in me. All those hundreds of thousands of gopis, understanding me to be the most charming lover and ardently desiring me in that way, were unaware of my actual position. So they were unaware of the fact that Krishna was God. They were unaware that he was so powerful To him, he was just a young, beautiful boy, and they were in love with him. All of them were in love with him. So were his parents, and so were some of the ladies thought of him as their child. Others thought of him as their lover. And there were, of course, his male friends as well. So they loved him just for who he is, not because of who he is, but just for who he is. So all of those hundreds of thousands of gopis understanding me to be their most charming lover and ardently desiring me in that way were unaware of my actual position. Yet by intimately associating with me, the gopis attained me, who am the supreme absolute truth. Therefore, my dear Uddhava, abandon the Vedic mantras as well as the procedures of supplementary Vedic literatures and their positive and negative injunctions. Disregard that which has been heard and that which is to be heard. Simply take shelter of me alone. So he's saying, disregard the Vedas. And then do what? Disregard all the Vedas. And it's not just these Rig Veda, Yajur Vedas. They run into hundreds of books. Vast amounts of knowledge. But he says, what to do then? He says, disregard that which has been heard and that which is to be heard. Simply take shelter of me alone. For I am the supreme personality of Godhead, situated within the heart of all conditioned souls. Take shelter of me wholeheartedly, and by my grace be free in all circumstances. So God is within every one of us, every single one of us. Whether you love him or you hate him, doesn't matter. Whether you believe or you do not believe, doesn't matter. He is still there with every single one of us as our best friend, guiding us, waiting for the time when we will turn to him. We think we're doing God a great favor to come to the temple or church or wherever you go to worship. No, he's been sitting there with you, waiting for hundreds, maybe thousands, maybe tens of thousands of years, waiting for that time when you will turn to him. You're not doing him a favor. He is the best friend of all. He's the best friend you'll ever have. He's been listening to everything you ever said. He's been with you through all the thick and thin of all the difficulties you've had and all the challenges you've had and all the hard times you've gone through. He's been with you. He's been listening to you. He's been witnessing your actions. He has been by your side. That's what makes him phenomenal. So now Uddhava said, O Lord of all masters of mystic power, I have heard your words, but the doubt in my heart does not go away. Thus my mind is bewildered. So then Krishna says, my dear Uddhava, as the Supreme Lord, I give life to every living being, and I am situated within the heart along with the life air and primal sound vibration. So I am in everyone's heart. The pran shakti, your energy, your life force comes from me. Supreme Lord can be perceived in his subtle form within the heart by one's mind, since the Lord controls the minds of everyone, even the great devas. So the moment you reach out to him, he makes it possible for you to control your mind and experience him within your heart. He wants to connect with you. He wants to have you turn to him and listen to him from within the heart. The Supreme Lord also assumes a gross form as the various sounds of the Vedas, composed of short and long vowels and consonants of different intonations. So he takes various forms. I mean, he takes the form of all of nature. He takes the forms of all of this earth and all the creations in it and all the creatures in it. So in the purport, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments, Uddhava was bewildered and doubtful because Krishna explained many different processes. However, all these Vedic processes are meant to help the living entity obtain the shelter of Sri Krishna. See, It's not that you shouldn't be good to others. It's just not that you shouldn't do pious deeds and give in charity. And it's not that you shouldn't read the Vedas if you want to do that. It's not that you shouldn't do any of those things. The point is, you should understand what is the purpose of doing all those things. Krishna says, I am the source of all the Vedas, and by all the Vedas I am to be known. Vedaischa sarvair aham eva vedya. He also explains about how all work should be done as an offering to him. All charity should be done as an offering to him. All your good deeds should be done as an offering to him. Do it for his pleasure. And then the very same deed that you're doing doesn't just buy you good karma, but it becomes an act of devotion. Thus, Krishna explained the entire Vedic system, placing everything in proper perspective. Krishna was surprised that Uddhava foolishly thought that he was meant to practice every process, as if each method were meant simply for him. Krishna informed his devotee, my dear Uddhava, when I told you that jnana, or analytical knowledge, is to be practiced, pious duties are to be performed, devotional service is obligatory, yoga procedures should be observed, austerities are to be executed, etc. I was instructing all living entities, using you as my immediate audience. That which I have spoken and am speaking now and will speak in the future should be understood as guidance for all living entities in different situations. How could you possibly think that you were meant to practice all of the different Vedic processes? So why is he saying you, referring to Uddhava? Because Uddhava is already so close to him. Uddhava is already such a confidential friend of Krishna, his best of buddies, so to speak. So thus, with light-hearted and encouraging words, Krishna reveals to Uddhava the deep purpose behind the variety of Vedic procedures. So what is the purpose of all religious practice? What is the purpose of all good deeds? What is the purpose of all study of scripture? None of that is an end in itself. All of that is meant to please Krishna. And in pleasing him, we please everyone. Just as when you water the root of a tree, the entire tree is satisfied. Then he says, when sticks of kindling wood are vigorously rubbed together, heat is produced by contact with air, and a spark of fire appears. Once the fire is kindled, ghee is added, and the fire blazes. Similarly, I become manifest in the sound vibration of the Vedas. So interesting, right? Once you understand that the Vedas are they bring a lot of peace. They bring a lot of sense of deep discipline and a sense of being tremendously focused. It's very meditative. But all of that, all the sounds, the chanting of Om and the various mantras, are all because Krishna is becoming manifest. That sound vibration that you are vibrating, Om, is not an end in itself. Krishna says, I am the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. He says that in the Bhagavad Gita. So when you are chanting those mantras, when you are engaging in those rituals, they are all manifesting Krishna. He is the one that you're experiencing. He is that experience you're having in your meditation. So then he says the functions of the working senses. So this is another important thing to understand. The working senses are speech, your hands, legs, genitals, anus. These are considered the working senses. So when the functions of the working senses, the knowledge acquiring senses, such as the nose, the tongue, the eyes, the skin, the ears, as well as the subtle senses, the mind or mana, intelligence, buddhi, false ego, ahankar, and consciousness, chitta, as well as the function of the subtle pradhan, which is the energy of the entire universe, and the interaction of the three modes of material nature. All these should be understood as my materially manifest form. So all that you're seeing around you, all that is going on inside you, the entire processes by which your body and mind are functioning, are all is Krishna's materially manifest form. Think about it. What's making, I was just contemplating this about how people say, oh, my heart is beating. Well, what makes your heart beat? What makes your lungs pump day in and day out for so many years? Oh, because you're eating some food, I see. What's converting that food into energy? And then what's transmitting that energy all the way into your heart and into your lungs, causing them to function? And how come they beat, the heart beats even when you're not eating, even when you're fasting, even when you're sleeping? It's not like you're thinking, I want my heart to beat, I want my lungs to. No, you're not. It's not happening because of your thinking. It's not happening because it's what you desire. It's happening whether you think or not, whether you desire or not. It's like how your hair grows out. You're not thinking, I want my hair to grow out. It grows out. In the same way, your life energy is moving through you. What's causing it to move through you? What's causing you to be able to see? Look at the complexity of the eye and contemplate. What's causing all of that? It's mind-blowing. If you were to go down to the level of the DNA and look and observe, you would find there are billions of particles of information within each strand of DNA. What made that possible? How did that information get into the DNA? What programmed the DNA? You see, people want to think that, oh, these things just happen by accident. Oh, they just happen through evolution. Really? I guess my cell phone happened by evolution too. I guess my cell phone just kind of happened by accident. Maybe they should give them away for free because they're just an accident. Nobody made them. But you'd say, that's foolishness. Of course, we know somebody made them. There's a company, that made them, Samsung or Apple or whatever company it is that you're buying from. Of course, and they deserve to be given credit for that and deserve to be paid for that. Oh, but that which made the universe, that which made the stars, that which made these trillions of galaxies, that requires no credit. That which made this body, that which made every single cell and DNA and everything within this and made it all function, that requires no credit. You owe nothing to that. That can be taken for granted. That I don't have to give any credit. I don't have to even think about. I can just completely brush it away. Really? Is that right? That's the arrogance of our ego and the foolishness of us buying into this illusion that we are somehow existing independent of God. That is the false illusion that all of us are under. But if you really stop and look at it and think about it, then nothing is happening by chance. Everything is perfectly planned. The way the planets are moving, the way the seasons are changing, everything is just beautifully orchestrated. It's like listening to a piece of music, beautiful orchestra or band, whatever what kind of music you like, and thinking, oh no, that's just a algorithm. It's just a thing that's happening. Just they just spun a whole bunch of numbers around, and then this music came out. No, there are people who spent years studying how to play that music and how to then work together as a team in a band or in an orchestra and then produce phenomenal sound. But it is ignorance to think otherwise. Then Krishna continues, when many seeds are placed in an agricultural field, innumerable manifestations of trees and bushes, vegetables, and so on will arise from a single source, which is the soil. So when they're placed in the soil, all these trees, bushes, vegetation, everything will arise from that one single thing, the soil. Similarly, the Supreme Being who gives life to all and is eternal originally exists beyond the scope of the cosmic manifestation. In the course of time, however, that same Supreme Lord, who is the resting place of this entire universe and the three modes of nature and the source of the universal lotus, the universal lotus flower in which the cosmic manifestation takes place, divides his material opulences and thus appears to be manifest in innumerable forms, although he is one. Just as a woven cloth rests on the expansion of lengthwise and crosswise threads, similarly, the entire universe is expanded on the lengthwise and crosswise potency of the Supreme Being and is situated within him. So, in other words, he is the very fabric that weaves together the entire universe. His energy is what weaves it all together. And it is so perfectly done that everything is in complete harmony. The conditioned soul has been accepting material bodies since time immemorial, and these bodies are like great trees sustaining one's material existence. Just as a tree first blossoms and then produces fruit, similarly, the tree of material existence, one's material body, produces the various results of material existence. This tree of material existence has 2 seeds, hundreds of roots, 3 lower trunks, and 5 upper trunks. It produces 5 flavors and has 11 branches and a nest made by 2 birds. All of this sounds very mysterious. We'll be explaining it in a moment. The tree is covered by 3 types of bark, and it gives 2 fruits and extends up to the sun. So in the purport it is explained. The 2 seeds of this tree are sinful and pious activities. So we engage in either good karma or bad karma, sinful or pious activities. Those are the seeds. Those seeds then are linked up to our desires. The hundreds of roots are the living entities' innumerable material desires, which chain them to material existence. See, the earth, right, the soil, as he was talking about earlier, represents the material world. So now our desires, like the roots of a tree, chain us to material existence. The 3 lower trunks represent the 3 modes of material nature. 3 modes of material nature are goodness, passion, and ignorance, which affect our consciousness and then and allow us and also determine what kind of things we're going to do and desire and so on. The 5 upper trunks represent the 5 material elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. The tree produces 5 flavors: sound, form, touch, taste, and aroma, and has 11 branches: the 5 working senses, the 5 knowledge acquiring senses, and the mind. We talked about those earlier. 2 birds, namely the individual soul and the Paramatma, the supreme soul, God, who is present within each of us. Right? So there are two represented by 2 birds, the individual soul and the Paramatma, the witness, God, the part of God that is present within us. So God exists as a being, God exists as the fabric of the universe, but God also exists within each of us, in the Paramatma. So 2 birds, namely the individual soul and the super soul, have made their nest in the tree. And the 3 types of bark are air, bile, and mucus, the constituent elements of the body. The 2 fruits of this tree are happiness and distress. So out of all of this desires and out of being caught in this in this material world, it ultimately comes down, the fruit of that tree is happiness and distress. 2 fruits. We will get both of them. Those lusty after material enjoyment and dedicated to family life enjoy one of the tree's fruits. Swan-like humans, or in the renounced order of life, sannyasis, the paramhamsas, the great souls, the saintly persons, they enjoy the other fruit. You see, one may think that we enjoy some amount of happiness and some amount of distress, but actually, what we call happiness is just relief from suffering. If I'm hungry and I eat, then I feel happy. If I am hot and I turn on the air conditioner, I feel happy. But this is only a relief from the suffering of the heat or the hunger or whatever other desire. When that desire is fulfilled, I think I am happy. But that is not real happiness. That is happiness that is the negation of my suffering. The negation of my suffering is not the actual thing I seek. Real happiness has no cause. Real happiness does not require something to happen for me to feel happy. Real happiness is called ananda. Ananda is that which arises from the soul. It is the very nature of who you are. It is the very nature of the soul. But because we are disconnected from the soul, we do not experience the ananda aspect of the soul. The soul is called Sat Chit Ananda. Sat means it is eternal, it is full of wisdom, and it is full of happiness. That ananda, that happiness of the soul, is not something that we experience. Who does experience it? He's referring now to the evolved, highly evolved persons. He says here the swan-like persons in the renounced, who have renounced means they've completely detached from the world. They enjoy the fruit of happiness. One who, with the help of the bona fide spiritual master or guru, can understand this tree to be a manifestation of the potency of the one supreme truth appearing in many forms, actually knows the meaning of the Vedic literature. So the purport says those who are busy trying to enjoy the company of beautiful men or beautiful women, money, and other luxurious aspects of illusion enjoy the fruit of unhappiness. Enjoy the fruit of unhappiness. One should remember that even in the heavenly planets there is anxiety and death. Those who have renounced material goals and taken to the path of spiritual enlightenment enjoy the fruit of happiness. One who takes the assistance of a bona fide spiritual master can understand that this elaborate tree, this tree of material existence, is simply the manifestation of the external energy, the external potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is ultimately one without a second. If one can see the Supreme Lord as the ultimate cause of everything, then his knowledge is perfect. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchit Ananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. He is the cause of all causes. He is the ultimate cause of everything, as it is said here. And that knowledge is perfect. Otherwise, if one is entangled in religious rituals or Vedic speculation, study of the scripture and trying to speculate about what it means. And if you look at every religion, there are so many different schools within that religion. Within Christianity, I think I heard somewhere it was 30,000 different branches. Within Islam, there are so many, and they fight with each other. Within Hinduism, there are so many different schools of thought. So that is the result of speculation. What is beyond speculation is to learn from a spiritual master, one who has mastered those teachings, and to listen to the words of the Supreme Being himself, and to understand them through the spiritual master. Because otherwise, if there is no living spiritual master who is following those teachings perfectly, who has achieved the fruit, the results of those spiritual teachings, if there is no person like that, if all you have are people who are great speakers and great talkers, then talk is cheap. talk does not give you results. You need a person who is actually living this knowledge. And such a person does not just have gyan, that person has vigyan. Vigyan is realized knowledge, lived. When you're living these kind of teachings and you're completely imbibed them, then you can instruct others. So we are learning from our own spiritual masters and then sharing that knowledge. We are not in any position to be the spiritual master and take charge of someone. No. So if one is entangled in Vedic rituals or Vedic speculation without knowledge of the Supreme Lord, he has not achieved the perfection of life. With steady intelligence, you should develop unalloyed devotional service. This term comes up again and again. Unalloyed devotional service. As I explained earlier, it means there is no adulteration. There is no adulteration of any other desire than to love God, to love that Supreme Being, to love that Supreme Personality of Godhead. When it is unalloyed, nothing mixed, no mixed agenda, one should develop unalloyed devotional service by careful worship of the spiritual master, and with the sharpened axe of transcendental knowledge, cut off the subtle material coverings of the soul. What are the subtle material coverings? Mind, intelligence, ego, and chitta or consciousness. Cut off all that. Upon realizing the Supreme Being, one should then give up that axe of analytical knowledge. So the knowledge is required to bring you to the point of realization. After that, it is not required. In the purport, it is said Krishna has clearly explained in this chapter that the gopis, cowherd women of Vrindavan, were not interested in any analytical approach to life. They simply loved Krishna and could not think of anything else. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught that all his devotees should follow in the footsteps of the gopis in order to develop the highest intensity of selfless love of God. Krishna has elaborately analyzed the nature of the material world so that the conditioned souls, that is us, who are trying to enjoy it, can cut down the tree of material existence with this knowledge. One who has accepted Krishna as everything may enjoy eternal bliss in his loving devotional service. So with that, we'll end today's reading of the Bhagavatam. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask. Some of you are here on Instagram and others on Zoom. If you don't think of anything right now, please feel free to write down in the comments any of your questions and I'd be glad to answer. Okay, I'll see you again. We're here every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, which is 5 p.m. Pacific. And that's on Tuesdays. If you can convert that to whatever time that is in India, if you're there or any other country where you might be. Look forward to hearing from you. Hare Krishna.